planet. Absolutely unique. And there is one being that knows that for everybody that's ever lived. And that is the first cell of a new, unique, special, valuable creature created in the image of God. And that's what it says. Of course, none of these people really believe that, but at least they recognize what's happening at the biological level. All right. Here's a long quote, but we got to read it. We got to press on to this quote because it's important. And Merriam says this: although sperm are self-propelling, their journey through the female reproductive tract is a difficult one, to say the least. The acidity of the vagina is hostile to sperm, and millions of them leak from the vagina or die almost immediately after being deposited there. Survivors forge ahead through the cervical mucus and upward through the uterus and uterine tubes. However, this is presuming that the cervical mucus has been made fluid by estrogen. Otherwise, millions of sperm fail to make it through the relatively impenetrable barrier. Within the uterus, thousands more sperm are destroyed by resident phagocytic leukocytes. That's mom's white cells, her attack cells. And it is estimated that only a few thousand, and sometimes fewer than 500 sperm out of the millions in the male ejaculate finally reach the uterine tubes, where the oocyte may be drifting leisurely toward the uterus. A sperm count of less than 20 million per milliliter makes impregnation improbable. Whoa. Now that's a pretty rough life for a sperm, trying to get to an egg right there. Of course, this is what she says has caused it to happen. Spermatogenesis, which begins during puberty around the age of 14 in males and continues throughout life. Every day a healthy adult male makes several hundred million sperm. Some of us make more. And the cellular divisions of that support this prodigious output of sperm are rapid and continuous. It seems that nature has made sure that the human species will not be what? Endangered for a lack of sperm. I don't think there's enough trial and error to get that right. In other words, a man has to make at least how many a day? 20 million. 20 million. Typical men make 300, 400 million a day. A day. That's a lot there in order to make sure that this impregnation happens. Well, the question would come up here. Wait a second. Why are there any obstacles to fertilization? Isn't that bad design? Why does this sperm have to have a rough life just to get to an egg? Well, that's because of this. Unlike a man, inside a woman's body, obviously she has to have babies, which means it has to be open to the outside world. And if you could take a tiny, tiny little wire or string, you could go in the vagina, through the cervix, up to the uterus, out in a fallopian tube, and out the fallopian tube, and touch her liver, touch her kidneys. You could do that. It's open to the outside world. So if that can get in, bacteria could get in, viruses could get in, and all of those bad things could get in and cause her problems. So she has these protective mechanisms there. First of all, the cervix is buried inside her body, and you know exactly what I mean by that. It's not on the outside, it's deep inside to get to that cervix. Second, the environment inside the vagina is very acidic. In other words, a bacteria gets in there, it gets killed by the acid. Third, cervical mucus. Right at the cervical os, inside the cervix, it is plugged by a thick mucus it's just tenacious like glue. Except on day 14 of her cycle, it begins to thin out so sperm can swim through it. Next, inside her uterus, all of the cells lining her uterus have tiny little fingers on them, fimbriae, and they're constantly pushing things out of her body. So a bacteria trying to get in has to go against this force of these little fingers pushing things out. Next, crawling all inside her uterus, she has her own white cells. And if a bacteria gets in there, finally makes its way, one of those white attack cells crawling around in her uterus says what? Kill it. There you go. You got your immune system down. Who said catch it? It doesn't catch it. It says kill it. Kill it. It doesn't, there's no prisoners, no prisoners. There's no Guantanamo Bay inside the uterus somewhere on there. Kill it. Well, obviously, if a bacteria got in there, it would say what? Kill it. Well, what about a sperm swimming through? Kill it. That's exactly right. And then the zona. So all of these things are to protect her, and the sperm's got to make its way through that. Well, how does it get about? Seminal fluids. Oh, gross. Who wants to talk about semen? Well, we have to. And that's because it's these seminal fluids which are absolutely necessary for these sperm to survive here. Let's see if I have, okay. It says right here, the liquid in the semen provides transport medium and nutrients and contains chemicals that protect the sperm and facilitate their movement. Mature sperm cells are streamlined cellular missiles containing very little cytoplasm. We know that. And stored nutrients. The fructose in the seminal vesicle secretion provides essentially all the energy fuel. Fructose is fruit sugar. There's a little gland in a man's body called the seminal vesicle, which contributes some of the semen, and it makes this fructose. So as the sperm are swimming through it, they're swimming in their own little energy supply. And they're just picking up the sugar from the outside and converting it to energy. That's kind of cool. What else does it say here? The prostaglandins, that's another compound in semen, are thought to decrease the viscosity of the mucus guarding the entry of the cervix. So they get these prostaglandins, and I told you that the cervix has this big, thick mucus plug there blocking it. Well, prostaglandins cause it to do what? Thin out. Thin out so the sperm can swim through it. And cause reverse peristalsis of the uterus. Now, I told you inside the uterus there's those little fimbriae pushing things what? Outward. Well, you have this chemical in the semen, and it causes them to change direction and start pushing things inward. Now, this is kind of phenomenal. All of this is coded by the DNA in the man's body, yet it's having an effect on her body. Her body. Now, how in the world did that ever evolve? Through random genetic mistakes in me, so to speak, though I don't have any. But how would that ever happen? How would that ever happen? It's coded in my DNA. And that's why I said you would have to have these mutual genetic mistakes at the same time. There. Here's another one. The relative alkalinity of the prostatic fluid. That's that gland that gives men trouble